so much. And we do are working to work with online people as well. So my apologies if you're joining online. I was just sharing who I am. I work at a school in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and some of the challenges we face. So appreciate in the back that heads up. To go into those challenges just a little bit more. I'll need to move to the next slide. There we go. Oh, well, I had a slide about curriculum challenges, but we know them, right? This idea that meeting people where they're at, making sure that Vygotsky +1, if you've ever done some study in how people learn, we're unable to grasp concepts that are too far ahead of where we are working independently because we don't understand it. And often we don't have any motivation to work on things that are too far below our skill level because it's boring and we don't see the purpose. So students excel when they're working on curriculum one step above where they currently are. And that's that matching the curriculum piece. This next slide was about those barriers. You know in your programs that you're up against similar barriers as well. And the only one that I really wanted to highlight that I find one of the most difficult barriers in working with our students is those psychological barriers. Even if they can manage to get to class in the community or they've signed up inside the facility, there's that little voice in the back of their head, right? You're not good enough. This isn't the right path for you. And sometimes there's an incredible amount of voices outside of a student's head about why are you doing this? Our incarcerated population, it's not cool to go to school. And so, you know, they get pressure, negative peer pressure to be spending their time doing other things inside the facility instead of going to school. So I just wanted to highlight that as one of the trickiest barriers, right? So we know all the other ones exist, but getting people to have that confidence in themselves and in their pathway is one of the most challenging for our staff. And then I spoke briefly about that managing multiple platforms, how difficult that can be as well. And we use a lot of online programming, right? And when we're going to spend the most of today talking about AI, but you know, we've been using adaptive software for a long time now. And that is artificial intelligence, basing the curriculum and the lessons on the assessments. But finding the right match for students means that we're using a variety of online programs, not just one. We're using, in my particular school, we use Reading Plus as a reading intervention. We use Ascend Math as a math intervention. We're on WorkKeys. We're doing lots of other in classroom type stuff as well. And that can become a real struggle. I might skip this because our Menti wasn't working earlier, but I wanted to just take a moment and ask the people in the room, are there other challenges that I didn't mention that are particularly difficult in your setting? Anything I didn't cover? Oh, I did a good job. All right, let's get into the AI stuff here. Yeah. Oh, nice. Absolutely. I think that we could. I think that's a good idea. So what do we do with these challenges, right? Every student needs to be in their own right space. Every student is on their own journey in terms of motivation and overcoming some of those barriers to education. And my staff is running around trying to manage multiple tools, multiple platforms, and that can be really difficult. And so, you know, one of the things that we're really working towards is how does AI help with some of those challenges, right? How do we spend less time mining data and analyzing data and more time using that data to support students? And before we really start unpacking those tools, I have to pause because I am a firm believer that the technology alone is not enough, right? When I describe my school and my program to people, my elevator pitch is not about what AI is doing to enhance the student learning. My elevator pitch is not about the AI tools that we're learning about and implementing. My elevator pitch is that we're about relationship, that we are a school of relationship, and that it's only after that relationship has been formed and students trust us as individual real people standing in front of them that they're willing to engage in the AI tools that we use. And so when I talk about my school, I talk about relationships. I talk about our advisory model, every single student being attached to an adult in my program, a staff member that helps them navigate, that listens, that treats them like a real person. And so, while our focus here today is how do we use technology and AI to enhance learning, I'm a firm believer that that is after relationship, that it's relationship first, and that it is that trusted human connection that allows students even the ability to engage in the journey and to commit to what they're trying to do. And so, that's really important. And additionally, after that relationship, I think the second biggest solution that's working for us is really understanding student goals, right? And have students define their goals. Why did they show up? Why is this important to them? Why are they willing to sacrifice? Because school is a sacrifice, whether it's in the facility or in the community. It's a huge sacrifice to commit to school. And so what is behind that? And so we, as I mentioned, we have an advisory model. So every student is assigned an advisor. And pretty early on, after assessments roll in, after those TABE scores are entered, and we're really understanding what the baseline is, the advisor sits down with the student and works on an individualized learning plan. And it's loosely based off of K-12 IEPs, right? Individualized education programs. Our ILP starts with, what are your strengths? What are your barriers? Why are you here? What's going to help you? What are your support systems? And then let's set some goals. And so I want to take just a quick moment to share a story about what that looks like. I am currently at our community campus. I did spend 8 years as a counselor at our campus for incarcerated, but now in my administrative role, I'm at our community campus daily. When I say every staff member has an advisory load, I mean every staff member. The receptionist has a couple students that are her advisees. My data coordinator has a couple of students to help lighten the load on my instructional staff. My instructional staff may be carrying 25, 30 advisees. I carry 5. Right? And so what that means is I sit down with those 5 students and we do their ILP and we set their goals. And then I'm the person that they can come to. I reach out if they're not showing up. Relationship first, right? We're a school built on relationships. And so I met a young man. He's about 20 years old. He's referred to our program by the Young Adults Court. We have some specialty courts in Albuquerque, New Mexico that tries to divert people away from incarceration. So he's been sentenced in young adult court, and his judge has required him to come to school. So he comes, he does the assessments, he does all the things that other people help him do, and then he comes to meet with me. So we're going to do his ILP, and we're going to work on his goals. And I say, so what are your goals? Blank look. Why are you here? Because judge told me I had to be here. I'm court mandated. I said, so what does it mean to you? What do you hope to get out of this? I want my judge to be happy. That's the only reason you're here, to make the judge happy? Yep. I said, you know what? That's an amazing goal. If your judge is happy, you're out of incarceration. I can get behind that goal. I will support you in that goal. That I'm not talking as the director of adult basic ed. I'm talking as this young person's advisor. I can get behind that goal. Let's do it. So what do we need to do to help you reach your goal? Well, you have to sign this piece of paper for me every week that says I spent a minimum of 4 hours here. I said, well, guess what? You were here all day TABE testing and doing things, so I can sign that. I'll sign it. Here you go. There you go. I'll see you next week. He goes, really? Yeah, your goal is to keep the judge happy. My goal as an advisor is to help you reach your goals. And I believe in your goal. See you next week. So next week he comes in straight to me, gives me the paper. I said, I can't sign that. It says you've been here 4 hours. You got to go spend 4 hours here on our campus. So he went, sat in a chair for 4 hours on his phone. He's not engaged with a single instructor yet, right? Comes back to me. I signed his paper. Why? Because he was here for 4 hours and his goal is to keep the judge happy and my goal is to help him reach his goals. We did 3 weeks of that. And he comes to me and he says, Miss, what if I want to change my goal? I said, oh, that'd be great. What goals are you thinking of? He said, well, I want to get my GED. I was like, all right, well, let's talk about it. What does that mean? And so took him about 14 months. He was a successful graduate of our program. He passed all his exams, he did everything. But that's a student defined goal. When his goal was to keep the judge happy, I was happy to help him reach his goal. That meant come, stay 4 hours, I sign your paperwork. When his goal shifted to getting to the GED, we started to have really meaningful conversations about what his test scores were like, what time he had in his schedule, when he was going to come, how he was going to interact with my teaching staff. And now he had a goal, his goal, not my goal. This was never my goal, was for him to get his GED. His goal was now to get his GED. And it took us just over a year to navigate the system and help him reach his goal. So thank you. Student defined goals, right? It's unique in some ways, but not in others. I'm sure you have a lot of coaching conversations with your students as well, whether you call it coaching, whether you call it advisory, whether you call it retention, right? That retention, we're always so difficult to garnish. We have success stories when we allow students to take ownership of their goals and it's their goals and they want them, because then all I had to do was help him navigate. He had the drive, he had the motivation. Weeks before that, we would have battled at every step, right? We would have been fighting about how long it was taking and what he needed to do next. At this point, he's ready, willing, and wanting to get that diploma. And so we were able to do it together. So I talked about some of the difficulty in managing our multiple platforms, and I just want to kind of share with you what that means, right? We use Canvas as an online system. In the facility where they don't have access to technology, they're getting packets. In the community, those packets have turned into Canvas courses. We're using Essential Ed, we're using SIS systems, we're doing a ton of, I mentioned some of those other programs. We have a question online. Appreciate your help, the buddies in the world. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Appreciate your help tremendously. And so, one of the things, and when we start moving away from my case story and into the AI tools that we're utilizing, right, is this other mission that I'm on as an administrator, and that is I envision a continuum, right, of using data. And so on one side, even further down the continuum, there's data ignorance and data torture, right? And then you move into like, it happens, it's torturous, this data stuff. Yeah. But then, we work really hard and we get to data compliance, right? I'm collecting and reporting the data that's mandated by my state. And when I started in this program, I felt like that's where we were. We were compliant with data. But I want to move us past that. I want to move us into being data informed. I want my staff and my students to have all of the data at their fingertips that's needed to really serve a student and for a student to create their own goals. And I want to move even beyond data informed into data driven, where that data is really driving the work that students or teachers are doing, right? But I'll be honest, we're just leaving data compliance and moving into data informed. And we're doing that with the help of my co-presenter, who's going to take over here in just a moment, of an organization called Nucleos. We're going to talk quite a bit about what they do, but also other AI stuff that's happening. So join me on this mission from being data tortured to data compliant to data informed and hopefully to data driven. And I don't know if you have the funding. I don't have the funding to have enough staff to make that happen, right? I didn't talk a whole lot about that, but I'll take the mic, steal it back in a little bit. I don't have staff to look up all this data and compile it for the student so that it's real time. So this is part of the way that we're using AI. And I'm going to pass this off to Noah.
All right, great. So we'll start out, let's see here. I want to bring in some of the results and just share them. We'll come back and do that at the end here. Um, Real quick, Beth, can we refresh this presentation? Yeah, if someone's sharing the slides, are we able to refresh it? No, I don't think so. Okay. Getting ahead of ourselves. So I'll just share quickly. I've got the results up from that survey we all did, and I'll just share it with everyone in the room here since we are having trouble being able to pull it up on the screen. Oh, this one's and it's okay. Oh, okay. That's what I wanted to do. And let's bring this back full screen. Okay. So here's just some of the results from the survey. We've got 65 responses. Thank you, everyone. Um, so what do we see? Rewarding and challenging. Definitely respect that. Um, just a lot of feelings about the work, which is fantastic, and we know how important and meaningful that work is. We've got an equal mix, it looks like, of administrators and instructors. So thank you, everyone, for the work you're doing. And we have a lot of people with a ton of collective experience in this room. So that's fantastic. Mostly adult ed, as we would expect. Mostly for adult basic ed, English language learners, and high school equivalency. And people want to learn about AI tools. So let's jump in and talk about AI tools. So when we talk about the capabilities for AI today, um, when you think of an AI model, it's a model that's taking all of the text that's been generated by all of humanity to date, all the books, everything on the internet, and it's run through a neural network of multiple layers, which basically comes up with a giant model that answers one fundamentally simple question, which is what is the most likely, statistically likely answer to a given prompt, given that training data? And so that's a very useful query a lot of the time. It's essentially like prediction. And if you think about different theories on intelligence, one of the neuroscientists who is I think one of the more interesting operational theories of intelligence, Richard Dawkins, says that intelligence is really prediction. And that's what our brain does. It always predicts what happens next. And that's very similar to what these AI models are doing. One of the challenges we see, though, with the AI models in this current generation of predicting the most statistically likely response is that most statistically likely response isn't always true, right? So the state of the art models today are called large language models, these models that take all the text in the world and essentially have a giant linear algebra equation with billions of parameters. And so we get that hallucination. And so one of the big challenges with these large language models and AI today is how do you ground them in connecting to facts and truth? So how smart is AI today? So this is interesting. So this plots a lot of the models, the leading models that we're using today on an IQ graph. And we can see the leader right now is Claude's or Google's Gemini 2.5. ChatGPT o1 follows slowly a little bit behind there, and then Claude 3.7. And so you can see there's a big progression, but the capabilities are dramatically increasing. So when we think about how can we use AI tools, it's interesting to think that in some measures, a lot of measures, AI is surpassing, the average IQ would be 100. A lot of the models today are surpassing that. And if we look at, some of the free models like GPT-4o, it's just under an average IQ. It's about just on the left of the bell curve. And then some of the more paid models are already ahead. So I think that's very interesting. And different tools have different use cases. So a lot of people are wondering, how do you get started in AI? So if you haven't used many of these AI tools before, the first step I would suggest is just sign up for a free account on one of the systems and just try talking to it. Just try asking questions. With, it has all of humanity's knowledge in these models, and they're updated. Some of them have web search capabilities. So I think this is particularly interesting. When we talk about that statistically most likely response sometimes being a hallucination, something the model makes up isn't grounded in ground truth because it extrapolates, just like we do as humans. I know I've hallucinated in this AI sense before, right? It's something we're all guilty of, thinking we know the right answer, and in fact we aren't correct in that sense. So ChatGPT, that's the most popular one. It's really started the whole craze of large language models when they released GPT-3, and it took off. But they have web search capabilities. Perplexity is another one that I recommend. I think it's the best one for web search out there if you want to ask basic research questions. But you could go into any of these models and just start chatting with it. Can you help me with this lesson plan? I'm struggling with teaching this. I'm having an interpersonal conflict at work. For me personally, I like to I love it for thinking through sometimes interpersonal challenges, because one of the challenges of AI, one of the drawbacks is it doesn't have that emotion. But, that can be really helpful sometimes. Exactly. So someone's pointing out, you can say nicer. It's great. Um, I read a great Abraham Lincoln biography. What he'd do when he was feeling angry, he'd write a really mean email and crumple it up, or a letter at the time, of course, or write it out, crumple it up, throw it away, not send it. What we can do today, what I like doing is I'll write that angry email, and then just like you're saying, I'll go to ChatGPT and make this, a nice, acceptable version, or help me see this with the emotion stripped out. So these tools are incredibly flexible and can really meet any just one-on-one personal use case you have. Just start using them. The free tiers will get you really far, and you should be aware that the different models have different capabilities, right? So if you're just starting out, I would definitely recommend free ChatGPT is the one to start with and jump in. And then Perplexity is one I would check out for more advanced web search capabilities. And so it'll combine essentially what a Google search would do, look up a lot of links with the AI model. Mm-hmm. And so there's a ton of different AI specific tools out there. We aren't necessarily going to go deep dive a lot of them because there's way too many for this specific session, but I wanted to share this link, and these slides will be uploaded at the end of the session as well in the Wova apps. You'll be able to go back and download them. So there's a lot of different ones out there.
Interesting comment from online. AI captures all of humanity's knowledge, but this excludes indigenous cultures and indigenous wisdom.
I think that's an excellent point, right? So written knowledge, is only one component, and what cultures is that knowledge being sourced from? So, I think another critical thing to think about is bias in AI. So we've been developing a lot of AI tools at Nucleus. We also do a lot of work in corrections education. And these models, in ingesting all the written works of, the dominant languages, say, um, they encode a lot of those biases. So I've done even very simple tests before where I'll say, take race into consideration and write me a basic algorithm to do criminal justice sentencing. And it'll come back with an algorithm that'll actually say for different races, do different responses. And you think about the biases in our criminal justice system and what we intuitively know, and it'll just write that as the algebraic formula. Oh, approximately like if it's, a minority times 2 length of sentence, something like that. So this actually becomes very dangerous if you don't guard against these biases, because you could imagine someone developing, say, an AI sentencing tool. This was actually on our ballot in California this last election cycle. It was voted down, but the goal was to make it more impartial. But the risk, of course, is you build a lot of these biases in. And so when we're developing our own AI tools, we try to think of that bias and try to strip out information that we don't want the AI to be biased in. So just like for job applications, you might say a way to avoid bias is remove name, remove, things that could show You could infer a racial background from, say. So that's the same thing we do with our AI. When we're asking it to give a background on a person, we feed the AI model, we take the name out, and we do blank student identifier. And so these are some of the things that we're thinking about developing AI tools, but I think you should definitely be aware that all the biases of humanity have been encoded in these AI models. So then these models are trained, and they're trained to remove these biases, but it's not perfect, right? The underlying basis is it's getting, all the color, all the beauty, but also the ugliness of humanity encoded into these models. So do we want to do a Menti? Let's see. I think we could do this, Menti. Let's see if you all want to try to pull this one up. This is just a fun little quiz to see if we can detect what's AI or not. And in theory, I should be able to start it from right here. Mm-mm-mm. Well, everyone should be able to see the results. Let me, yeah. So give me 1 second here. Oh, Beth Dorado is currently presenting. Are you presenting, Beth? Yeah. It's not letting me present this one. I think we're just gonna have to skip it. Um, yeah, but this one I have to click you through one at a time. And this Mentimeter thing is saying I can't present because yeah, maybe Beth will be able to log in on this other computer. I'm gonna keep going in the meantime. Keep it pulled up on your phones. We may be able to get it started, and we will jump back. So we'll jump through the activities. I wanted to just share a little bit um, about what some of the research studies that are early on looking at AI tutoring look like. Um, so to start with, has anyone heard of the 2 sigma problem before? So this is a study. It's by Benjamin Bloom, and it's from a couple decades back. And he was showing that one of the most effective education interventions, he was doing a meta study of the different education interventions, was one-on-one private tutoring. It had 2 standard deviations of improvement, which, versus everything else he looked at, it was like more effective than 80% of other things. And so the promise of AI is, what if AI can act as that tutor and bring the promise of personalized tutoring to everyone? There's some interesting early results supporting that. There's some AI tutors that have taken this one private school in Texas has an interesting model. It uses 2 hours of AI guided instruction that students go on computers every day to deal with the basic coursework. And then they spend the afternoon just engaged in personal skill building, group activities. But all the curriculum is just handled in 2 hours using an AI. And their test scores were, I think, at the 55th percentile or so, and they rocketed all the way up to like 90th percentile or so. So I think that is very interesting. So the promise is, can AI provide one-to-one tutoring for everyone? A Harvard study that recently came out is also, oh, and we've got the quiz up, so we'll come back to that in a second. Harvard study recently came out. It was showing 194 undergrads. This is in fall of 2023. So the AI models have only gotten better since then. And this was undergrads in physics. They used OpenAI's GPT-4 as a tutor, and they doubled the learning gains, as you can see, versus just the baseline, as well as increasing engagement from a 4.1 out of 5 to a 3.6 out of 5. It's also shown to have great effects in places where schools are very low resourced. So this is another study showing in Nigeria, 6 weeks of after-school AI tutoring were equivalent to 2 years of typical learning gains. So a very dramatic result. and it helped all students, especially girls who were initially behind. So a lot of interesting promise there. And um, these graphs are a little small. The one on the left shows just the difference in outcome, and then the attendance days map to the assessment scores. So the longer students were actually engaging with this AI tutoring, very closely correlated to improved results. So very interesting. Um, what are the downsides? What could the downsides be of outsourcing all of our thinking to a machine? Um, I don't know if educators are seeing this anecdotally. I'm seeing like people post on social media about cognitive decline, people's attention spans are going down. Different studies show this. I think the general thinking on this now is, there's different AI tools, there's directed AI tutoring, but one of the big challenges in AI, if you're an English teacher, are students just having the AI write the whole thing for them. Um, so I think the general consensus is AI can actually be harmful as a learning tool if students are using it to just generate the answer without engaging those critical thinking skills. So this is the big challenge. So, you know, a bunch of data shows this, but difficult and just cognitive challenges. A lot of psychologists are thinking this has to do with screen time in general. And so this is a report on screen use by Common Sense Media among 0 to 8-year-olds. And it brings up equity issues as well. So people associate limited attention spans with just screen time use in general and being trained from a young age. That's kind of a separate issue, but related to using AI to get the answer and not developing those cognitive skills in your coursework. But as you can see, there's big equity disparities, right? Essentially, you might think of the tablet being used as a babysitter, and you see that it breaks down. People are getting different exposure to, say, um, you might assume this is the inverse of directed human attention, time with your parents when they aren't at work, a teacher who's engaging with you. So this is a big concern, right? And so when we're thinking of like the most successful AI tools to help learning, they won't give the student the answer. They'll help the student work through it. And I think one of the most widely deployed AIs at scale for tutoring is probably Conmigo. Is anyone here using Conmigo or familiar with it? All right, so this is Khan Academy's AI, and so they have this AI tutor built into Khan Academy. It won't give you the answer. So if you want to check out an AI tool for learners, I would suggest Conmigo is a great one to do. There's a lot of English language learners here as well. And if you go to that earlier link, there's a bunch of specific English language learning tools. But for, say, adult basic ed or GED curriculum, Khan has a wide range of content there. And so that's an interesting one, but it won't give you the answer. And that's something that we're looking at as well. And I think, let's jump into that activity now. So are you ready to go on that one, Beth? All right, so we are going to jump back to the Menti for a quick AI quiz to see, this just comes back to the idea of how capable are AI models. So just to see, can we even detect that difference between something that's AI generated or in this case, a real photo. So, all right. Yeah, yeah. You should just be able to go think you're presenting, right? Oh, and we're starting the quiz. We're going to reset the results. I think that's what we got to do.
Problem I think is that everyone is on the Wi-Fi, and so I'm getting part of the problem is just the bandwidth of the Wi-Fi in this space, and so now I'm getting the swirly again, and so we may have to not do this, unfortunately. It just takes so long.
All right. Why don't we got some questions in the room. Why don't we just stop for a little questions, and then I did want to show a quick demo of how we're building an AI tutor into our platform. It's something we have the early prototypes of, so I want to show that. And let's start with some questions in the room, or if you're online, put the question in, um, and we'll start there. Yeah, yeah. So the question was, if you're the teacher, wouldn't it be pretty easy to just, create the prompts so that your students aren't just getting the answer, but it's actually making them do the critical thinking? And I think, yes, that's a great point, right? But what happens for homework when students go home? They can just go to ChatGPT, and even if they have the tool, they can get the answer. They can just go there. So I think it's important as educators to really, as Beth is saying, meet the students where they are with their own goals, tie the importance of the learning outcomes to those goals, and really explain to them that you can't just shortcut to the answer and get that cognitive learning. You have to actually go through the steps. And so you really need to have students internalize that and own that as a goal to some extent. And also think that the role of, our role in society is probably changing, right? If a lot of us are knowledge workers. What happens when intelligence is just an API call away, right? Do we then move to being more empathy workers? Is it more about the human connection? Is it more about what you're doing with them?
When it comes to also just looking at their process, so within things with extensions with Google Docs, there's this thing called Brisk. Again, you can give them feedback from it, but then it tracks their whole thinking process, and therefore for us as the educator, we see they actually generated it. It comes out this amount of time, all of those types of things. So those are other things. And I know that Grammarly is also working on something right now that's in beta mode. Class Companion is the first one.
Yeah. So students want to use AI. They want to get that help. They want to tap into the intelligence. So if you can direct them to the right tool for your course and give them the guidance that why they should use this one, I think that's also an effective, idea, right? You be the leader. You be the one who's figuring out how to use AI constructively so you can teach that to your students.
I wanted to talk just a little bit about the AI that we're using at the organizational level, because a lot of the conversation right now has been how are students utilizing AI in terms of how do I write this paper, or how do I get the right answer to give to my teacher. But some of the ways that organizationally AI is supporting my staff is in that managing those multiple platforms. So we have an integrated learning experience that's being provided by Nucleus at my campuses. And what that means is when a student enrolls in my school, this is what used to happen. The student came and filled out a form, either on paper or sometimes in the community they use a Google form. And then a staff member hand typed that information into LACES, our database. And then other staff members enrolled students into those variety of platforms that we talked about, those adaptive softwares that we've been using for years, Reading Plus, Ascend Math, Work Keys. We create TABE tickets, right? There's this whole process. And behind the scenes, that takes a handful of my staff, the majority of the day on orientation day, enrolling them into those programs. Now, students are given these little card, right? This is our older model, right? Last year, after someone enrolled them into all of those programs, students would walk away with a little index card, and it had the websites of those programs and their login credentials, what their login was, which was the Google email that we had to set up for them. I forgot that step, right? We had to create an email. So then they get this index card with the websites, their login credentials, their passwords, and they work on those programs. And now my instructional staff, on the flip side of that, weekly are logging into these programs to look at the data. Did they spend any time in Reading Plus? Did they level up? What standards were they stuck on? That adaptive software provides all of that information to the teacher, to the administrator. But how long does it take one teacher to do a data check on a student? They have to log into a minimum of 3 or 4 programs. They have to pull up that data. They're printing out reports. They're taking that data and entering it into a format that they can share with their student back. And so AI on an organizational level is about automating all of that work. What happens this year, now that we're on the Nucleus platform, is my staff enrolls them in Nucleus. And Nucleus auto enrolls them into TABE, into WorkKeys, into Reading Plus, into Ascend Math. I've just saved about 2 or 3 hours of staff time, right? And then they're on the back end, this AI is pulling all of the data reports out and entering it into a data dashboard that my staff can look at and my students can look at. So instead of having to log into Reading Plus and see how many hours they've done on Reading Plus, are they still in level C? Did they move up to level D? Are they ready for reassessment? All of that data is mined by AI in the background and inputted into the student dashboard. So now all my staff have to do is log into Nucleus and they can see for this student how much time they've been in each one of those programs, what their scale scores are in each one of those programs, and any other data that we work to integrate, to pull out. And so what I'm experiencing is a much smoother and more efficient workflow for my staff. I don't have administrative assistants responsible for pulling data from my instructors anymore, or I'm not asking my instructors to do that at their kitchen table at 9:30 at night before class tomorrow to see if they want to change their lesson. What they're able to, so not just in the coaching of a student or the instructional work that AI is doing with students, but how much can we automate organizationally? And so instead of staff members logging in again to 4 or 5 different platforms to pull data and then have a conversation with the student, both the instructor and the student log into one platform and they're seeing all of that data in one space. And so what does that mean? I got to hire a new teacher because I didn't have to renew a contract for an admin assistant who was doing all of that work. So now I have a larger instructional staff building those relationships, helping students when they're stuck, and I'm spending less time as an organization looking things up so that, remember, I'm moving from data ignorant to data driven. This is how we're marching along that line. We're saying, how can AI work for us as an organization to cut out data mining, data cleaning, and just now I can take data and talk to it about students. Wow, you leveled up. That's great. Now we're moving right on to the next step instead of, well, let's log in and see if you've leveled up, which is what we used to have to do. So just, there's a lot of ways to look at how AI-powered initiatives can really support an organization. And one of the most powerful ways that I
Testing 1, 2. Um, maybe not. So anyway, the question was, what's the name of the AI you were using, the system? So this is our system with Nucleus. Achieve DXP is what it's called by Nucleus, and it's good for the situation when you have a lot of different apps and you want to connect that data. And then we're looking for agencies that want to pilot with us our new AI learning and career coach that also takes in all that data, and we'll do a quick demo of it. And I saved it for the end because I think it solves for one subset of problems here, but the world of AI is so much bigger. So I invite everyone to look at these resources that will be shared in the slides as well. So, okay, we're doing the Menti, AI or human, and here is the first one. So you won't see it on the screen, but on your phone, question 1 of 10, I see 16 players, 17, 20, 21. Okay, we're gonna give everyone a few minutes to sign in. So you get rated on this one. It's a race. You're all racing against each other. You get points based on the right answer and how quickly you answer it. So, so fun. Okay, we've got 42 players. Oh, this is fun. Look. So this tool is called Menti if people are looking for good yeah. I know next time. Okay. So we're gonna start it. Enter to start the quiz. Get ready, everyone. And the QR code's still gonna be showing up here. Oh, this bar we don't want it in the way.
Able to just get in.
There we go. No, it's just leave it. Just leave it. It's doing it. So we're getting all the answers. And yeah, this is fun. Okay, 4, 3, 2, 1. 54 responses. All right. Out of those, 42 got it wrong. Okay, next question. 60 players ready. Let's go. So we got 10 of these. So we'll see.
So again, we can't see it on the sheet, but you should be able to see it on your phones there.
Yeah, I'm seeing we're getting about 60 responses. So most of us have figured it out. Awesome. And we finally did.
Not quite. It'd be better if we could see it up there as well, but that's all right. Small wins, small wins.
Okay, interesting. 40 out of 63 got this one right. We'll show the results at the end. It'll show you the results at the end on your thing. All right, next question. Here we go.
So not real? Oh, that was real. I can't tell the difference.
So I'm gonna save them for the end. We'll see. If we show the answers as we go, our human pattern recognition will probably see the pattern for the correct answer, which is an interesting thing AIs struggle with, actually, certain types of pattern recognition.
It struggles with pattern recognition.
Certain types of intelligence and pattern recognition, which is very interesting. I'll show a couple slides on it at the end here. All right. Question 4 of 10. Here we go.
He's fake.
Is he though?
I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't create this, so I don't
Can
know.
we even tell anymore? We're about half on that one. Interesting.
I think he's fake. The hairline, that can't be real. It has a hairline like that.
Definitely a filter on it.
Well, but then it's still a tamper. So.
What a photograph is.
No. You don't have to just
We're not so good at that one. The AI's fooling us.
I feel like I know this person.
We should have used one of your photos. People in the room.
Oh, the background.
Oh, okay. Maybe we're getting better. A lot of us got that one right.
Yep, that pattern.
Very good.
So a lot of times if you look at the AI generated ones, you can see how they, just from the apps, you can see.
You were good at Minty. Thank you for figuring it out. It was my tool and I don't know how to use it.
Okay, last one. Or second to last one.
Almost, guys. I think she's a girl. No, I think she's fake. Or is the pattern back and forth? I haven't been paying attention.
This isn't what I put in there, I'll copy
Last one, and then we'll talk about patterns.
Okay. All right. Oh, we have a leaderboard. We have a winner, Donna. Maybe Donna's online. Oh, Donna, way to go. Oh, Donna's
There's more than one Donna.
there's a lot of Donnas. One Donna did better than everyone else. So what's that?
It's a smiling cat.
Oh, smiling cat emoji.
That Donna.
And
Let's see, smile.
yeah.
That's the emoji. I'm actually.
And so yeah, so we won't necessarily go through the rest of the mentees because we're running a little low on time, but I'm showing a screen of like these type of puzzles, this type of thinking to recognize these patterns is actually some test AIs have difficulty at like recognizing the pattern. Show a couple examples. You have shapes like this, you add a pink square, show it a new set of blue corner shapes, and then it has trouble extrapolating where the pink squares go. So some of the challenges for AI today in AI research is how do you make a benchmark on intelligence? Because AI is progressing so fast that all the models keep catching up and scoring 100% on these types of problems. So, you know, by next year when we come back here, I'm sure AIs will be really good at this. But what it has, that type of problem is less about just the pattern recognition of the training data, and can it learn something new from new data that it's given post the training or post the actual development of this model. And so that's something where AIs are kind of weak on, is this the type of things you might do on like an IQ quiz, shape rotations, things like this. So that's just a kind of an interesting thing about where AI is today. And so, yeah, of course.
Is there a difference between large language models and intelligent AI? Is that a distinction? That's what I'm.
Oh, like so the question, yeah, is there a difference between an agentic AI and a large language model? So an agent is largely applying a large language model. So it's a large language model gives you one answer, one text response to one text input. And you can also do image inputs, and it can do an image response. Technically, it's not a large language model, but uses the same type of neural network to train images in these same models. An agent then will ask many questions and think and respond. And, you know, a way to think about the large language model is like one thought. The agent is, let's take this capability to answer one thought and chain it all together in different ways and then let it talk cool. Exactly. So Leslie, are you here with us? Let's see.
Yes.
So Leslie is going to do a demo here. I'm going to stop sharing. Leslie, if you could share your screen. And I just wanted to show one thing, how we're using an AI system connected with someone's learning profile. And let's see, he's sharing. So this is connected with someone's learning profile. And then our system, Achieve DXP, is a digital experience platform for education and training. That's kind of what we think is beyond the LMS. Some people call it a learning experience platform. It's one system that connects to multiple LMSs and connects with all the different tools that someone might use, right? And um, so our system here, we've built out a learning profile. This is Leslie's learning profile here. He's a software developer. He's got experience as React Native developing. He's developed in multiple software languages, doing backend engineer work, volunteer software developer, React Native developer. And our system uses like a chat bot to help coach you and guide you and get that profile info. And he's got some education background. So now he can just chat with it and discuss his goals, discuss what he wants to do next, and how some of the different courses that are available on the platform can be used. And so I'll zoom in here, and Leslie, maybe you can try just chatting a bit with the model here. And so this is something we're developing and demoing now. If anyone's interested in piloting these schools, we in your systems, we'd love to talk. We'll have our info at the end and also a sign-up sheet to share any info. So Leslie is saying, hi, I'm interested in a career shift. Can you help me brainstorm? So kind of an open-ended question, right? So again, it's chatting with the AI model, and this is one we're working on to be a career coach, and we're giving it all that background. And so once this is deployed at a school, it would know Leslie's TABE score, it would know his reading level. It wouldn't know his name and the background, but it comes into the chat. It would also know what he's spending time on in all those programs and what some of his goals are. So based on your interest in a career shift, and he's told it he wants to work with his hands, he's ready to get out of coding. Here are some potential career paths you might consider. So starting very broad, exploring what's out there: welding technician, carpenter, electrician, plumber, mechanic, HVAC technician, mason, craftsman, artisan, landscape designer, ceramic artist. If any of these careers interest you, I can help you find relevant courses or training programs to get started, or you could keep discussing open-endedly. So in this model, we're really relying on the power of these large language models to do most of the heavy lifting. When we develop a tool like this, we train it with prompts, and then we really think about piping the right data so it has that perspective. And the goal here is to aid students in exploring things. It's certainly not to replace teachers, right? Because I think learning is a social phenomena, and the optimistic future I think I would certainly like to work towards is that these tools free humans to do more what humans do best: connect on those interpersonal relationships and everything there. So he's then asked it, I've always been interested in welding. Do you have any courses that I should take to begin my welding journey? And so some have come up, some are still showing software. So in this case, the results were not good. That's interesting. So that's why it's still in the demo phase. So interesting. So would you like to learn more about these courses? I don't know. Let's why don't you see if it wants to go back to a welding? So that's the basic idea. So I know we're coming up towards the end here. Are there any other questions that, yeah, we got a question, but
not this program originally, but the other platform where you're able to get into your state data management system and enter all of that information to talk to it with security.
yeah.
All of that. How did you do that?
So this is the system we have in, production and, across 8 different states, a lot of counties across the country. And so he's talked to it more. He said, hey, you were a little off in that response. So it's an agent in the background, and now it's doing welding. So there we go. But it's on the flyer that we passed out. That's our platform, Achieve DXP. How we do it, we connect with all the databases. We have an integration engine, and we can connect with them via different scripting, customization. We work with your agency to get all of the data you need into the system. And then you can see all the results in one place. You can engage with them. No, love to
So
your provider. Yeah.
briefly, some of our vendors were all about it, right? I was like, hey, I want to integrate into the system called Nucleus. Can I get you connected with their IT people? And some of them were like, yes. And so some of my programs, like Ascend Math, worked with their programmers and really integrated, right? They're two integrated systems. Laces wasn't so interested, right? They were like, oh, we love that. We know that's the future. We're not ready yet. So what we're doing with Laces is on a weekly basis, we're pulling a flat file and importing a flat file. And so it's not as automated as Ascend Math is in terms of the data being there immediately. If a student is on Ascend Math, it shows up immediately in my Nucleus dashboard for students and staff. If I'm looking at things that I need to pull out of Laces, that's going to wait until I push a button and it exports a flat file and imports a flat file. And so some of my integrated platforms are immediate because they were open and willing to that integration, and others is a little bit of lag. But it's still a tremendous time saver, even if I'm just pushing forward those flat files, as opposed to paying staff members to hand enter that data.
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in, just the digital experience platform in general, feel free to share your info on this other QR code up here. We've got a lot of QR codes. Or you can just shoot me an email. And then if you want to pilot any of these new AI tools doing different things with your system, I think we're all still at the learning phase here, and we'd love to engage either with that or the production ready data connection system for students and teachers and administrators. Or if you just have questions about AI tools or, what it means to be human these days. Yes, another question.
Yeah, we're piloting with classroom instead of a whole organization as a trial, or is that something that?
Yeah, we would be interested in, piloting with a specific classroom as well. We'd want to work with someone who's enthusiastic about wanting to be an early adopter, give a lot of feedback, have it designed to meet kind of what you want to do and some of the customizations, and go through them.
That you had with in terms of like profile or having student information.
Well, thank you, everyone. Feel free to stick around or come with any questions. Appreciate it, everyone.
Good to meet you. I'm Angie.
One of the things that happens
is
when things like data is getting stolen,
I would
it's
not
not
to see
right,
kind of
it's
how
with
you
a
integrate
unique identifier. So again, it's not going to say Dr. Rado, this is
I'm in enterprise.
my profile, right? It's
Arizona, and they're all over. And they're kind of integrating.
Do we have the partnership in place yet? I know our COO, Chris, was working on it. I don't know if we got to the finish line yet. I gotta check in on that.
Everything we need to do on our end.
Oh, it's on our end.
Yes. And I guess
and I'm certainly not,
getting a lot of things
advice around.
Our model, we've 100 like apps
so,
we integrate with, and
what
partners
is
we can
still
also
my
resell.
answer is not
We can integrate with you, you do the deals direct, or we can be
with any of the.
selling it, or you can bring us into things.
Is.
Okay.
need to know what our next steps are, because we've done everything.
This is it. Don't mean to go back in my team and be like, what is this going on? We'll make it happen.
We would want to partner with
Getting
you.
digital
to see
files
how
now.
our data
within the
would work
campus.
with your
It'd be
AI.
great to work with AI stuff. Yeah. So we're essentially
Pilots.
would love to do that. Yeah, because we need to see we're essentially just giving it a bunch of tweaks. So we give it the ability to course search, the ability to update your goals, the ability to check on your learning. So it's
Then it would be
we're-
easier to.
and then we want to do a tutor like Comigo, but the difference is we want to connect it with every existing app you're already using and the data that the classroom's already using in between. So it's an exciting project for us, and we're at the early stage, right? It's like it's kind of, yeah.
We have all these connections. And a lot of them are just things with us and other things.
You
There's
know,
no tons of
in terms of like
this,
a student.
it's really excited to see, so let's definitely stay in touch.
Yeah. And I'm out of cards, but anyway, I'll make sure we take care of this. Okay, perfect. Good.
The last, I'll send it to our president, so we know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
We definitely gonna talk to him.
Yeah, our teams, we're scrappy, we get overwhelmed. So any delay is just because we've been distracted, busy with other things, but we're definitely interested. We want to make it happen. Yeah.
This is a big deal.
Yeah.
Especially for
major
adult
players.
kids. Because what
Well, that's what we're focusing on now. Adulthood and introduction to K-12. We don't want to take it to K-12 until we, really learn a lot from adult ed, because we're coming from corrections education. With the adult ed is between the two. And so much more to learn. I mean, it's so nice. Like learners